Hey guys, in this lesson we would understand what is rate of change. Rate of change has an acronym ROC, it's ROC, and its simple meaning is slope. So if the question asks us to find out rate of change, that means the question wants us to find out slope. Now rate of change is of two types, AROC, where A stands for average, so this is average rate of change, and IROC. IROC means instantaneous rate of change. Now the meaning of average is that when we are finding the slope between given 2 points, it is called average rate of change. And when we are finding slope at one given point, then what we are finding is called instantaneous rate of change. In this lesson, we would discuss different types of questions that can be asked for average rate of change. Next lesson we would cover up IROC, that is instantaneous rate of change. When it comes to average rate of change, that is AROC, there could be three types of questions asked. Questions can be given in the form of graphs, tables, or equations. Equations could also be word problems. Now graphs is further of two types. You could be given linear graphs or could be given non-linear graphs. Tables are just simple T-charts. Equations could be direct equations or in the form of word problems. Because we know AROC is slope between 2 points, the formula that we would be using is a slope formula, and that is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Let's take up all different types of questions one by one. So first we are going to go over the linear graphs. Let's say we are given a graph and we are supposed to find out the average rate of change between 2 points, and we are given the points as x equal to 2 and x equal to 4. We know average rate of change is slope, so technically we are looking for y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We're given the two values of x. Let's call this x1 and let's call this x2. Now when x1 is 2, we read it from the graph, the value of y is approximately 2.5, and when x is 4, the value from the graph is approximately 4. Therefore, y2 is 4, y1 is 2.5, divided by x2 is 4, and x1 is 2. So this would give us 1.5 over 2, which is equal to 0.75. And this is our AROC. If let's say this was time and this was distance, kilometers, then we would put the unit as kilometers per, time was in hours, so we would put it kilometers per hour, because this represents the distance kilometer and the denominator represents the time hours, so we make sure that we put our units accordingly. Now let's say if we are given a non-linear graph and again we are asked to find out the average rate of change between 1 second and 5 seconds. This means the x value is time, so that will be given to us in seconds, and let's say this is height given to us in meters. Then how do we solve this is we are again looking for slope, that is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. However, what are we going to do is if we're given a nonlinear graph, we'll first mark the points. When x is 1, this is where we are, and when x is 5, this is where we are, and we make a straight line passing through these 2 points. Make sure you use a ruler to draw this line. So this is our line. This line has a name called secant. Now we see if we want to read this point when x is 1, y value is approximately 1.5, and when x is 5, y value is 4. So we are able to read the points. What are we going to do is we will just take y2 minus y1, so 4 minus 1.5 over x2 minus x1, 5 minus 1. This would give us 2.5 over 4, that is 5 over 8. The units that we would put is meter per second. Now what is the role of this secant line? The role of this line is that just in case we were not able to read these points, because not always the nonlinear graphs will be easily read on the y-axis, it could be some decimals that cannot be read. So what we can do is instead of picking these points 1 and 5, we can pick any other point on this line, and that would give us the same slope as we would get when the x value is 1 and 5. And why is that so? Is because this line has been drawn keeping in mind these 2 points. In other words, we can say AROC of a nonlinear graph is equal to slope of the secant line. So what are the steps to find out AROC when it's a nonlinear graph? Given the 2 points, we would use the points to draw a line through it. That is called secant. And all we have to do is just find the slope of the secant line. You can either use the same points that are given in the question, or you can use any other points on the line that would give you the slope of this line. And slope of this line, that is the secant line, will automatically give you the AROC of this nonlinear data. Let's say if we're given a question in the form of this table and the question wants us to find out the average rate of change or AROC over an interval of 45 minutes. This will only be possible if x is given to us in minutes and let's say y is given to us in meters. So over an interval of 45 minutes means x1 is supposed to be 0 because it means it goes from 0 to 45 and x2 will be equal to 45. All we have to do is just find out the slope from 0 to 45. So the formula that we would be using is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. y2 value is 257. y1 value is 125 divided by x2 is 45 and x1 is 0. So all we have to do is just put this on the calculator and it would give us 132 divided by 45. That would give us 2.93 meters per minute. And this is how we find out AROC when we're given a table of values. Let's say now we're given a question in the form of equation. We are given ft is equal to 3t squared minus 4t. And we're asked to find out the average rate of change from 5 seconds to 8 seconds. Then 5 seconds is our x1 and 8 seconds is our x2. We would find out y1 and y2. Now y1 is the value that we would get when we sub in 5 seconds in the ft equation, because we know from the previous grade that ft or the function is nothing but the y value. So y1 would be equal to f of 5 and y2 would be equal to f of 8. So all we have to do is just sub in 5 in place of t in the ft equation. We get 5 times 5 is 25 times 3 is 75 minus 20. That gives us a 55. Similarly, to find out y2, we would now sub in 8 and we get 192 minus 32, which gives us 160. Now we have all 4 values, x1, x2, y1 and y2. So slope would be equal to AROC, that is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. y2 is 160. y1 is 55 divided by x2 is 8, x1 is 5, and it would give us 105 divided by 3, which is equal to 35. We would put the units if we are given what is ft going to stand for. Let's say ft is given to us in meters because y value comes from ft, so this is meters, and x value comes from time, that is seconds. Unit is going to be meters per second. And this is how we find out AROC when the question is given in the form of an equation.